Everyone knows that cabbage is nutritious and inexpensive, but what most people don't realize is that when you cook it the right way, it can be incredibly delicious and even the star of a dish. So today we're elevating your cabbage game with a few techniques. First up, we'll be making a stovetop braised cabbage in a spiced tomato sauce, then a silky cabbage pasta with creamy walnut sauce, and finally a deeply roasted cabbage with a really fun sweet salty crunch. You can find all of these recipes at NYT Cooking, and later in the video, I'll share how you can access them for free. But for now, on to cabbage recipe number 1. For our first dish, we're going to be searing cabbage in a hot pan to get it nice and charred, and then we're going to braise it in a spiced tomato sauce so it gets super tender and almost melts in your mouth. This is a dish I make when I have friends come over because it feels fancy, but it's not complicated to make. So we're starting with 1 medium green cabbage, and whenever you're working with cabbage, the first step is to remove any of the bruised or wilted outer layers. If anything is brown, go ahead and discard that. And this is actually the variety we're going to use in every recipe today. It is the most accessible cabbage you can find at every grocery store, and it's also super cheap. Once you have your cabbage sliced in half, you're going to slice it into 4 wedges through the core. You want to cut every wedge so that it has some piece of this tough white core in it. Otherwise, your cabbage wedges will just kind of fall apart into these loose layers. We are searing our cabbage, so grab a large cast iron skillet and get it going over medium-high heat. Add in those cabbage wedges and use a pair of tongs to make sure they're evenly coated in the oil, and then you can season the tops with a ½ teaspoon of kosher salt and cook these undisturbed for 5 to 7 minutes or until the bottoms are nicely browned and even a little charred. Gently and carefully flip the wedges so they don't fall apart, and then you can season the other side with salt and cook for another 5 to 7 minutes. You can transfer these to a cutting board or a plate, and then wipe out any food bits that are still in the pan because we're going to use it again in a few minutes. Our cast iron skillet is really hot right now and needs some time to cool off, so I like to use this time to start on our spiced tomato sauce. You're going to start off by slicing 2 medium shallots and then finally chop 3 garlic cloves. For the tomatoes in the spiced tomato sauce, my preference is to use half of one of these 28-ounce cans of whole peeled tomatoes. I actually already have half a can in my fridge, and we're going to crush it by hand. Canned tomatoes can be a little acidic, so it helps to add a bit of sweetener, and I like to use maple syrup. As I mentioned, this is a spiced tomato sauce, so let's get some spices. We've got a teaspoon of paprika, a ½ teaspoon of ground coriander, a ¼ teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/8 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, and 1 tablespoon of Aleppo pepper. If you don't have this, you can use about a ½ teaspoon of red pepper flakes, which are much spicier. Heat a tablespoon of olive oil over medium heat, and we're going to start off by toasting some whole cumin seeds for extra warmth and flavor. Let those gently sizzle until they're a few shades darker, but make sure to toss frequently so they don't burn. In go the shallots and garlic, and you want to stir these pretty frequently for a couple minutes or until the shallots start to soften. Next, the spices, and you guessed it, you'll want to stir these almost constantly too. Smells so good. All right, time for our tomato mixture. Add our seared cabbage wedges. Nestle them in very gently, like you're giving a careful and loving bath to an injured bird. Caca! 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 Now, if you want to make this more of a main dish, what I like to do is to take a can of chickpeas, these have been drained and rinsed, and just add them to the pan. Whether or not you add the chickpeas, the next step is to cover your pan with a lid, and you want to let this simmer for about 10 minutes until the cabbage is super tender and the tomatoes start to thicken a little bit. I'm actually going to braise this on my regular stove so we have some space to make our lemon tahini sauce, which is going to add some really nice indulgence to this dish. You're going to squeeze in 2 tablespoons of lemon juice into a bowl, grate in a clove of garlic, add just a touch of ground cumin, a teaspoon of maple syrup, again to balance everything, plus salt and pepper, of course. And now a 1/4 cup of your favorite tahini. At this point, you want to stream in some ice water a tablespoon at a time until your sauce is creamy and luxurious, but still pourable. That's pretty much it. So good. I love this stuff. Our cabbage is looking gorgeous, and it needs just a few finishing touches. A handful of chopped cilantro for freshness, but if that's not your thing, you can use parsley. A squeeze of lemon juice to brighten everything up, and then our luscious tahini sauce. It looks so pretty, and the nice thing is you could just serve this straight out of the pan, just pop it on your dinner table with a, hot plate underneath, and everyone can just grab their piece of cabbage out of the pan. It just melts in your mouth. Super simple, but really feels gourmet. This one is so good. Our next two dishes definitely have some competition. I'm gonna eat this whole plate. It's so good. For our next dish, we're gonna slice cabbage really thinly and cook it down in olive oil until it gets silky. And it's gonna fold in perfectly with our pasta and creamy walnut sauce. This is like a white cream sauce pasta, but a little healthier, and it's perfect for date nights, but also for families because it makes a lot and the cabbage really melts into the pasta, so your picky kids and picky partners might not even notice the cabbage is in there. So to start, we'll cut it into quarters. And unlike our first recipe, we are going to slice out this core because it's kind of tough and it won't cook down at the same rate as the rest of the cabbage. From here, the goal is to slice the cabbage as thinly as you can. You're aiming for about 10 cups or 500 grams of shredded or thinly sliced cabbage, and save this for a salad. Just a couple more things to slice. 4 fat garlic cloves, and slice those as thinly as you can because they're not going to cook for long, so we don't want them to stay raw. And pick off some fresh thyme leaves from their sprigs, about a tablespoon or 2 grams worth of leaves, and just roughly chop those up. No need to be precise. One more prep item. Fill up a large saucepan of water for the pasta. We are cooking a full pound of pasta, so you do need a big pot. While our pasta water comes to a boil, we can cook our cabbage. So grab a 12-inch saute pan and get it over medium-high heat. Our pan is nice and hot, so we're gonna go in with a generous amount of olive oil. Looks like a lot, but I promise it's gonna cook down. Season generously with salt and black pepper, and a pair of tongs is helpful so you can evenly distribute the salt and the oil into the cabbage. The technique here is to stir just occasionally, not too often, so the cabbage can brown in spots, and as it cooks, it will really melt down and start to almost feel silky. If it starts to brown too quickly or stick, just lower the heat a little bit and deglaze with a splash of water. Now add in the garlic, thyme, and a bit of red pepper flakes. Once you start to see some color on the garlic, you can remove this from the heat. Once your pasta water is boiling, you want to salt it generously. For a pound of pasta, I'd say 2 to 3 tablespoons of kosher salt. I really love using bucatini for this recipe because it holds the sauce super well, and you want to cook the pasta for the minimum time listed on the package until it's just al dente. And don't forget to scoop out a ladle of pasta water before you drain it. While our pasta is cooking, we can put together our sauce. Starts off with some walnuts. We've got 3/4 cup, and I like to add them to a food processor. And if you don't have one, I will show you an alternative method. All right, this is what you're looking for. Now, if you don't have a food processor, you can do it the old-fashioned way. Add your walnuts to a Ziploc or reusable bag and grab your crushing tool of choice. I've got a rolling pin. If you have a mallet, that would also be great. If you don't have either, you could try a small, heavy pan. This is slightly less evenly crushed than the food processor method, but still works great in a pinch. Now for our liquid ingredients, we need a generous amount of nutritional yeast, 1/2 cup. It's a lot of pasta, or 40 grams if you like to use metric like me.
Nutritional yeast liquid?
No, we're gonna add liquid in a second, thanks. Another non-liquid ingredient, some salt, somewhat liquid ingredient, olive oil, extra virgin, 2 tablespoons of that, or 28 grams. And then you need 1 1/4 cup of a creamy plant-based milk. For this recipe, I recommend, if I can hold this, I recommend either a cashew-based milk or an oat milk that's a barista-style oat milk or a full-fat oat milk. I'm gonna use cashew milk today. And just give it a whisk. That's it for the sauce, and the pasta should be done, so I'm gonna drain it and show you how to assemble everything. To bring everything together, return the pasta to its pot along with the sauce and the crushed walnuts. Turn it up to medium-high and toss really well with tongs until the pasta is well coated and al dente. At this stage, you want to toss pretty vigorously. Show the pasta who's boss. You're the boss. And the walnuts are gonna really help the pasta sauce emulsify, but if you feel like it's not really clinging to the pasta, go ahead and add some of that reserved pasta water. Starting to sound good. It's a bit of an arm workout. And now we can fold our cabbage back into the pasta. Dang, now how bad can that be? I like to squeeze in a little bit of lemon juice to, again, brighten everything up, and a generous amount of black pepper. It kind of gives this dish cacio e pepe vibes, and some fresh basil is a really nice finish here. Nice big old bowl of pasta for me. This is so luxurious and creamy and savory. The cabbage just really melts into the pasta. It's almost like one with the pasta, and it adds this background sweetness that is super, super delicious. It's perfect for date night, perfect for families. Definitely try it out. I think you will love it. Our next dish is deeply roasted cabbage with the sweet and salty peanut crunch. This is a perfect dish for a dinner party or when you have friends coming over, and it's so good that it'll upstage any main course. It gets deeply browned and a little crisp on the outside, but still buttery and tender on the inside. We're starting with a medium green cabbage. With each half, you're gonna slice it into 4 wedges, again, through the core so the wedges stay together. Here's how I prep the cabbage so it browns evenly and beautifully. First, drizzle half of the olive oil directly on a rimmed sheet pan and season the pan itself with salt and pepper. Now you can add the cabbage wedges on top and just rub them around so the bottoms get nicely coated in the oil. This way you don't have to toss the wedges in a bowl, which roughs them up and makes it more likely that they'll fall apart. For the second side, I like to use a pastry brush to rub the rest of the olive oil on the tops and the sides, and that way it gets perfectly coated. But if you don't have a pastry brush, you can just use your hands. And season the tops with salt and pepper. I tested a bunch of different methods for roasting cabbage, and the thing is, if you do your standard roasted vegetable treatment at like 425 or 450 for 30 to 40 minutes, the cabbage gets nicely browned on the outside, but it still kind of stays not raw, but it has a bit of a bite on the inside, which some people like, but I prefer something really soft and tender. So for this method, we're gonna put it in a relatively low oven for a long time, 350 Fahrenheit for 50 minutes. And it's gonna go on the bottom third of the oven, so the heat at the bottom of the oven is gonna brown the bottoms really beautifully. And then we'll put it in a hotter oven for just a few minutes to get the tops nice and browned. While the cabbage roasts, we can work on our sweet and salty peanut crunch. So we're gonna need some salted roasted peanuts and white sesame seeds. For our aromatics, we have a green chili pepper, serrano pepper, and some garlic. For our spices, we have black mustard seeds and curry leaves. If you can't find either of these, don't worry, you can improvise. And then we have some lime for acidity and brightness, and some medjool dates for the sweetness. We're going to start by finely chopping a half cup of the peanuts. And if you have a peanut allergy, no worries, this dish is also really good with cashews. And then stir in 2 tablespoons of sesame seeds. And finally chopping 1 serrano pepper, and then finely chop 4 garlic cloves, as well as 4 large medjool dates. This is what the cabbage looks like after 50-ish minutes at 350. You can see there's some browning, but not a lot. The good thing though is that the core is almost tender, so we're getting that soft interior. Now we're gonna pop it back in the oven on the top third of the oven, so the heat from the top really hits the tops and they get nicely browned. There's no need to flip it, and we'll check after 10 to 15 minutes. While the cabbage finishes up, we can make our peanut crunch. So you need a medium frying pan, and you wanna get that over medium heat. Once the pan is hot, you can add the peanuts and sesame seeds and toast these for about 4 minutes or until the sesame seeds are golden brown, and then you can pour them in a bowl and set them aside. Now let's return that pan to medium heat. Drizzle in some oil, any neutral flavored oil is fine, and we'll add in our mustard seeds. These are gonna start to pop pretty quickly since the pan is already hot, and that popping sign is your signal to add the fresh curry leaves. Be sure to stand back because they will pop up quite a bit. After about 15 seconds, go ahead and add the garlic and serrano pepper. You want to stir constantly so nothing sticks or burns, and you're waiting for the garlic to just start to turn golden. You don't want it to brown. It should take about a minute, and then immediately pour this mixture into the peanuts and sesame seeds. Ooh, look at that. That is some nicely browned cabbage. As you can see, the cabbage is really nicely browned and even a little charred in spots, which is gonna add some complexity to its natural sweetness. And the outer leaves are nice and crisp. Can you hear that? But the thickest part of the cabbage, the core, is really tender. It's gonna melt in your mouth, so you get the best of both worlds. I'm gonna move this off to the side and finish our peanut crunch. It just needs 1 or 2 more ingredients. We'll fold our chopped dates into this peanut spiced garlic mixture. It can add such a nice sweetness to contrast with the spiciness and the saltiness. The zest of 1 lime, which is gonna give everything this very fun citrusy flavor. And 1 tablespoon of the juice. And a pinch of salt. Okay, so to plate this, you're gonna add your cabbage to a serving platter. I'm just doing half of it today since my platter is on the smaller side. And now it's time for our Indian tamarind paste. If you're not familiar with tamarind, it's super tangy, almost mouth-puckeringly so, but it's also a tiny bit sweet. I find it absolutely delicious and it really makes this cabbage dish pop. If you have an Indian grocery store near you, you can find it there. These are a couple brands I bought online, so you can also do that. Drizzle the tamarind on top, and then you want to add some more lime juice until it tastes bright and tangy. And of course, we're going to scatter the peanut crunch right on top. This dish makes me think I have died and gone to heaven. It's so flavorful from the peanut crunch and the tamarind and the cabbage. My goodness. You get the crispness from the outer leaves, but it melts in your mouth from the interior. It is so freaking good. And you can find all 3 recipes over at NYT Cooking. I've left gift links in the description box below, or you can scan these QR codes. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!